Welcome to Good Game Pocket Edition, the add-on pack for gamers by gamers. I'm Hex.
And I'm Barjo, and just in case you haven't seen us before, we present a show called Good Game, all about the wonderful world of gaming, and this is our concise edition.
Yeah, and it's our chance to give you key points in the games we've been playing from week to week, as well as answering some of your queries at the Ask Good Game desk.
Later in the show, we're going to have a look at Dead Space 3. But for now, Hex, how did you get on with Ni no Kuni?
Okay, so this is the game that's been made in conjunction with the Japanese animation studio, Studio Ghibli.
Let's get a shunt in, crybaby Bunting!
For the last time!
And this is instantly evident from its charming art style and storytelling. And obviously the animations of the characters themselves are wonderful.
Gameplay is similar to a Pokemon Master semi-turn-based kind of stuff, and you enlist little creatures to help fight with you, but I thought it was a little messy, Hex.
Yeah, I agree, particularly once you have a decent roster of characters to juggle between. Story-wise, it's aimed at a younger audience, but I'm a Ghibli fan, so I still had a good time with it. I gave it 8.5.
So much text to scroll through. I always struggle with that. I gave it 7.5. Now, another Japanese game, Devil May Cry, except this time it's been westernized in a reboot, which they've called DMC Devil May Cry. You play as Dante, Demon Hunter, who straddles the line between Limbo and the real world, but what happens in Limbo also affects the real world, and the developers have fun playing with that mechanic. Whether that's being simply guided through Limbo by your friend Cat,
You have to cross a sky bridge to get into the East Wing.
or using your grapples to change the real and save your friends.
And the two realities to this world make for some interesting design, don't they?
Yeah, I like Limbo. If you can handle the hardcore heavy-duty thrash metal music that plays when you're in it, it's an interesting mechanic. There's a lot of platforming in this DMC, but it's mostly trial and error, so I didn't have that great a time with it. But I thought there were still some inspired moments as they manipulate the world around you.
There are around 20 or so missions, but I felt like each one of them had a point or a purpose, either to the story or to mixing up the gameplay with new abilities or weapons. You know, you just never felt like you were simply moving through zones. The Limbo world also makes each mission feel different because the devs manipulate and play with so much of the environment. And I'm glad they do, because the combat does get a little bit relentless. It's basically a gauntlet of rooms filled with enemies, but you have to make your own fun within the combat. Unfortunately, the controls did hamper that a little bit at times.
Yes, they're quite of an angle, and I couldn't quite get my rhythm going with the combat, so I gave it 7 out of 10 rubber chicken.
I gave it 8. Next up, Aliens Colonial Marines.
My unit has suffered immense casualties on LV-426 and requests immediate assistance aboard the USS Sulaco.
From the moment you arrive, you're hit with a wave of alien nostalgia as you're faced with some really great links and references to the films that fans will undoubtedly go nuts over.
And when you get down to the planet, that whole landing zone and entry, Hex, the holes in the roof of the operation room and the floor where those aliens came out, the bed that Ripley and Newt slept under, the sentry guns, even that yellow light when you talked about the monsters. It's all there.
But apart from taking you on a set tour of those iconic film locations, I felt pretty let down by the actual gameplay, which is pretty average.
Yeah, and it looks a bit dated too visually, but you know, when you're walking around with 3 other human players fighting off xenomorphs and that tracker is going off, that does make up for some of it.
Winter, O'Neill, your location has been compromised. Get your asses back to operations ASAP.
I gave it 7 out of 10 rubber chickens.
I gave it a 6.
Right, we better get to the Ask Good Game desk, Hex.
Okay, let's go.
Good game.
Okay, so let's kick things off with this from Hex Joe in Adelaide. Is there any information on the new Xbox console?
Well, Hex Joe, there have been some detailed leaks about what's going into the hardware of what we'll call the Xbox 720.
And the PlayStation 4 for that matter.
Yes, and you can find all the specifics online about how many CPU cores and what kind of graphics cards they'll all be packing. But without actually getting into detail, it seems like both are shaping up to be quite powerful and closely matched, with the PS4 rumoured to be a touch more powerful.
But the next-gen tech demos we've seen look pretty impressive, and they're obviously going to be able to run those engines on the 720, so I think we're going to get some pretty amazing graphics in the next few years.
Yes, so they might even be as good as PC graphics are right now. So Microsoft will also no doubt bring out their next Kinect, which will hopefully work better in a normal-sized room, and maybe even that aluminum thing which projects games around you in the room.
Illumi room.
Yeah, it looks like it has potential. Aluminum rooms, if it works.
Yeah, if it works. As for the PS4, rumours are the controller has a touchscreen and a share button, so you can instantly record the last 15 minutes of gameplay and share it online. I mean, none of that really gets me that excited, to be honest, so I hope they've got some bigger surprises up their sleeves for, you know, the full reveal.
I like that 15 minutes thing, though. I'd like to be able to take a really good shot and then go, hey, look what I just did.
Yeah,
and share them. But the internet's going to be
cool,
flooded with
but-
terrible videos, though, isn't it? Of people
Yeah.
just teabagging. I think the most exciting tech thing coming out is the Oculus Rift, which looks like it might be the first ever decent set of virtual reality goggles.
VR butter. Oh my gosh.
Want VR so bad, it has to happen in our lifetimes, or I'm going to be so upset when I check out. I think those things could be real game changers if they work as well as I've been hearing.
I'm actually really keen to see how the Ouya goes. I mean, I'm sure it seems a bit like a smartphone, like attached to a TV, but it's cheap and it's small, and if it gets good support from developers, then it could be a really great machine for indie games.
Absolutely. And there's also Valve's Steam box, so there's lots of new tech coming our way, Hex.
Well, if you've got something game or game industry related you'd like to see us talk about, then hit up our inbox here. I just want like a USB port in the back of my head
Yeah.
that you can plug something into,
Yeah.
and then I'm in the virtual reality realm. I just want that to be something that can happen in our
Back of the
lifetime.
neck.
Yeah.
Yeah, me too.
Because it needs to be able to take away your vision.
It needs to also be able to feed and bathe and shower.
You need to be able to feel
Just
like
gotta
you're
be-
there. Like
yeah.
you need to be able to feel the sun on
It needs
you.
to take care of the outside.
But it
while you're
needs
in
to
that
not
world.
give you brain damage at the same time.
No.
Good game.
Dead Space 3 continues the story of Isaac Clarke and the mysterious markers. These were meant to deliver unlimited power for mankind, but had the nasty side effect of zombifying everything. And as it turns out, the markers are just the tip of the iceberg.
We need to stop the marker. The trail ends at the Admiral's quarters. She'd written marker scroll all over the walls. The answers are in there. I know it.
The first half hour of the game is actually kind of bad. It's a third-person action-adventure shoot-'em-up that doesn't feel like Dead Space at all. Happily, after that, it's back to slowly crawling through derelict space stations and ships until you finally plunge into the ice planet in an incredible landing sequence.
Audio adds much to the atmosphere as well. I just love the dramatic difference from the very quiet plodding around space to mechanical doors or the very loud sounds of necromorph screams constantly assaulting your senses. And when necromorphs get up close, it's always a controller-intensive experience.
One thing I've only just realized is how important it is to have the camera always anchored to Isaac, no matter what he's doing, whether he's climbing up a ladder or being squeezed out of a giant necromorph sphincter. You're always there with him going through that moment, and that just makes everything feel much more connected.
That's so important too when you're on the ships, which are really just like a bunch of rooms with loading airlocks. But that anchoring makes you feel like you're moving through a complete connected set piece, and those exterior space sections just reinforce that. This is a more action-focused Dead Space, but not at the cost of classic zombification surgery combat we know and love.
Yeah, even with all the action bits, at its core, it's still Dead Space, and I think it's better for it. There's also much more variety in locations now, and that's exactly what this series needed.
There's just more to do now as well. You'll spend some time jet booting in 3D space and taking little craft rides, which we know are just loading windows, but they're still a joy, and it just gives you a chance to breathe. And it's just a good-looking game at every turn, isn't it?
Yeah, there are some stunning visuals, and I could jet boot in space forever.
Okay. There we go. Let's not do that again.
There are more engineering puzzles now too. Apparently, Isaac is the only one who can solve this complex space engineering degree-worthy puzzle, and sometimes the gaminess of them doesn't quite gel with the awesome, rickety, hardcore sci-fi feel the rest of the game has.
I see it.
Plus, now you have the choice to play with a friend or completely solo. That means you don't have some AI buddy ruining the experience for you. When you play in single player, Carver will only appear now and then in the cutscenes. He's not some stupid AI buddy talking to you constantly and fumbling around not helping in a fight. It's a classic Dead Space romp if you play on your own. It's so clever.
Yeah, every co-op game should do that. Another big addition is the weapon customization system. You can now mix and match augments and buffs with weapon types, allowing for greater strategy in fights.
My only real criticism is that Isaac spends so much of his dialogue whinging about his ex-girlfriend and chest beating with another space jock. There are more important things for him to be doing, saving the human race, for example. But this is a fantastic game. I'm giving it 9.5.
I'm giving it 9.5 as well.
Good game.
Well, that's it for our very first Good Game Pocket Edition.
Yes, but there's a full episode of Good Game this Tuesday, 8:30 p.m. on ABC2. We'll be looking at Metal Gear Rising, Revengeance, amongst other games.
What are you doing here? This area is off limits.
Yes, and of course we'll be back next Saturday with another Pocket Edition. Till next time, may all your games be good ones. Hex out.
Baju out.
Revenger?
Revengeance.